watching the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show with Steve Overmeyer and John Rothstein.
Well, the NCAA field is set, and today we'll have our tournament overview, and we'll shine a spotlight on the East region. Steve Overmeyer here alongside CBS College Basketball Insider John Rothstein on the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show. And John, listen, every year this happens. Some bubbles were burst. Are there any teams out there that have a legitimate gripe for not getting in the tournament?
Well, Miami. When you look at the fact that Miami had a winning record in the ACC this season, and Miami won a game by double figures against Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium, I feel that Miami had a much better resume than UCLA. UCLA is a brand name program, but UCLA's best win was a home triumph over Utah. The committee said that when they evaluated UCLA, they definitely took into account the eye test when they decided that the Bruins earned a bid to the field of 68. But I think Miami and also Temple were more deserving of a bid than UCLA. Temple was a unique situation, Steve, because Temple had 2 seasons. Yeah. They started the season without Jesse Morgan and Devin Coleman, and they went 6-4 in their first 10 games. Then, in the second half of the season, during the second semester, Temple went 17-6 with their full complement of players, and that included a double-figure win over Kansas and a win over Cincinnati, who also is an NCAA tournament team. So I thought Temple and Miami should have been in the bracket ahead of UCLA.
See, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's 64 or 68, 72,
somebody's
114.
Always going to be
There's
complaining.
somebody that's
somebody's
going to be
left out.
Yeah, somebody's always going to be left
question.
out. All right, so every team that is in the dance knows their path to the national championship. But let's take a look at the first 2 lines. How do you feel about the top 2 seeds all around?
You know, I felt that Virginia should have been a 1 seed over Duke simply because the Cavaliers won the ACC regular season title, but I really don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. I think one thing, you need to think about when you're evaluating these top seeds, sometimes when things are this close, you're really like splitting an atom. Yeah. Because Duke, for all intents and purposes, let's face it, beat Virginia at Virginia. It won a game at Wisconsin. It won a game at Louisville. Virginia, on the other hand, lost to the Blue Devils. But, I think really if they weren't going to be the 4th overall #1 seed, it deserved to be in Villanova's region. That's what wound up happening. Villanova, the 2 seed. Virginia, the 2 seed in Villanova's East region, with the Cats being the top seed.
I think that's what makes it so confusing when you see all of these matchup games and trying to figure out, which team is hot at the right time and understanding the committee's frame of mind. But in the past, though, you really had to be one of the top 4 seeds if you really have one real expectation for winning the national championship or getting into the Final Four. But in the past few years, we've seen 7s, 8s, all the way to 11s in the Final Four. Which way do you see it breaking this year?
I think that the top 8 seeds are very strong this year, and that's much different from what we saw a year ago. If you think back to last year's NCAA tournament, a 7 seed in Connecticut played an 8 seed in Kentucky for the national championship. I'd be very surprised if that happens this season. But, college basketball is where the unexpected becomes the ordinary. Anything can and will happen.
Yeah, the brackets get broken before your very eyes. Very quickly. Yeah. So, some bracket busters. Are there any double-digit seeds out there you see maybe getting to the Sweet 16 or beyond?
Well, I think if we're going to identify some double-digit seeds to keep an eye on right now, I think Texas right away in the Midwest is a team that jumps out. This team has beaten Baylor and West Virginia this season. Now, again, I know Texas underachieved a little bit in the Big 12, but this is still a team that has its nucleus returning from a squad that won a game in the field of 68 last year. They've added Miles Turner, and again, Texas was right there against Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament last week and gave the game away against the Cyclones. So I really, really believe in this Texas team to do some damage, and I also think they got a favorable matchup. Butler had a great season in the Big East under first-year head coach Chris Holtmann. There's no doubt about that. But they have Cameron Woods and Andrew Schrabish up front. And when they play the Longhorns, it will be like facing a different breed of cattle on the baseline. And another double-digit seed I want to talk about right now in the West region is Ole Miss. Ole Miss will play in the play-in game in the first 4 against BYU. And Ole Miss, for people who aren't familiar with the Rebels, was a team that took Kentucky to the brink at Rupp Arena. This is not a flashy team, but it's a veteran team with savvy guards led by Jarvis Summers, one of the least appreciated players in college basketball. And to win in March, you need to have great guards. Jarvis Summers was a part of an Ole Miss team that beat Wisconsin 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament. Stephon Moody is a microwave-type scorer who almost has a Nate Robinson-type feel to his game. And Ladarius Snoop White was another component of that Ole Miss team a couple of years ago that beat Wisconsin in their first NCAA game. So I think Ole Miss is a team that I'm going to pick not just to beat BYU in the first four, but to also knock off Xavier and get to the round of 32.
You mentioned it. You like guard play. There are a lot of analysts analysts, a lot of experts and insiders that really rely on guard play in the tournament because of ball handling, because of being able to get to the free throw line. But experiences obviously plays a factor as well. What is the most important attribute for a team to be advancing in the tournament?
Well, this is a question that John Calipari always seems to be asked every year, and he always says the first thing you need is talent. You need to have players to advance in the NCAA tournament, and talent is more important than experience. But right after those two attributes, it has to be guard play. Just think about Connecticut last year. The Huskies were able to come from nowhere and win the national championship because UConn had the best player in the country in Shabazz Napier. And I also find that if you have elite guard play and you're able to get ahead, it's so difficult for teams to come back on you because you're not going to turn the ball over. That's the one thing that makes Virginia so dangerous, because London Parentis, their starting point guard, has really been the one player that's elevated their program. And because they're so sound defensively, Virginia always gets leads early in games. That allows them not to play from behind. Parentis doesn't turn the ball over. That's why I like the Cavs to represent the East region in the Final Four.
That's why there are some things that you just can't find on the stat line, and that is, in my estimation, it's the team's ability to handle pressure.
Absolutely.
Kentucky is the team that everybody has circled, of course, being the undefeated team heading into the tournament as the unanimous favorite to win the whole thing.
Right.
If it's Kentucky versus the field, which do you have?
Kentucky 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. And here's the amazing thing about Kentucky, and I want to bring this up and I want people to understand this. Kentucky's best player, when the Cats went to the Bahamas last summer and played several exhibition games, was Alex Poythress. And Alex Poythress hasn't played for this team since December because he was lost for the year with a torn ACL. So you're really looking at this for a second. Alex Poythress looked like he was in line for a monster season, was killing it in the Bahamas last summer. He goes down. That obviously has opened up the door for Trey Lyles to get more minutes. But Kentucky right now, doing what they've done, 34-0, without the player that shined the brightest last summer in the Bahamas.
They have potentially 9 NBA players on that Kentucky team. It really is going to be impressive to watch them in the tournament this year. All right, stick around. We're going to come back and break down the East region when we come back. You're watching the AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show.
The AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show is sponsored by AT&T UVerse. The UVerse revolves around you. Call 1-800-PICK-ATT.
Predicted this.
Never miss a moment with UVerse Live TV on the go.
And welcome back to the AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show. Steve Overmeyer, John Rothstein, East Region. Second time that Jay Wright, in the Jay Wright era, Nova has a #1 seed. How do you see their path in the tournament?
I think Villanova will get by Lafayette, obviously, in the round of 64, and then I see an arduous task looming right there for the Cats, potentially in the round of 32. I've wondered for weeks, and you and I have talked about this, how Villanova would do against teams that have bigger, more athletic front lines. NC State or LSU will present that type of problem in the round of 32. Northern Iowa against Wyoming will be the type of game where the first team to score 30 wins. That's the way it's going to be. That game will be played in the mud. And then, honestly, I look at this region right there, and this is not a vintage Louisville team, but Louisville still has a Hall of Fame coach in Rick Pitino, and it still will have the 2 best players on the court in Terry Rozier and Montrezl Harrell. I think the Cards, despite being undermanned this year, could go on a little bit of a run.
Well, that is, obviously, UC Irvine is a very tall team.
Mamadou Ndiaye.
He's 7'6".
Mamadou Ndiaye, and again, one thing you need to look at, too, is how will that affect Montrezl Harrell. I think that the Louisville angle is interesting for this reason because, one thing that's really difficult to simulate when you're talking about tournament settings is what type of defense teams are playing if it's not a traditional man-to-man setup, and that is where Louisville's zone could be a factor. And I think when you look at Rick Pitino's teams throughout the NCAA tournaments, there have been several times where they weren't picked to go very far, but they wound up advancing because of their coach, and obviously because of what they do defensively. But here's the thing. Northern Iowa and Wyoming, to me, is a coin flip game because you have 2 defensive teams, like I said, first one to 30 wins. That's going to be 45-42. Right. And then you have to ask yourself the question, even though Northern Iowa has had a great season, are you going to take Northern Iowa and Seth Tuttle over Rick Pitino and Louisville, who also will have Terry Rozier and Montrezl Harrell on the court. For me, I'm going to take the Hall of Fame coach 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. And no, I'm not taking Louisville because my tie is red.
Okay, I was wondering whether or not there was a connection there. All right, the bottom half of the bracket features a ton of big-time scores, none bigger than maybe Co-Big East Player of the Year Chris Dunn in Providence.
Chris Dunn could be a breakout star in this tournament, but how about Boise State playing a road game at Dayton in the first four? This is interesting to me on a lot of levels. When Boise State played in the first four 2 years ago, the Broncos played a LaSalle team that played a smaller brand of basketball with 4 guards. That's just what Dayton does. Oklahoma, a dangerous offensive team, is a 3 seed. I like Michigan State and Virginia to advance, setting up a rematch of last year's Sweet 16. So it'll be real interesting to see what transpires right there. But whoever Providence plays, Boise State or Dayton, could be one of the better games of the first round.
All right, well, we will be back every night to take a look at a different region right here on the AT&T Bracket Preview Show. He's John Rothstein. I'm Steve Overmeyer. Thanks for watching the AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show.
The AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show is sponsored by AT&T UVerse. The UVerse revolves around you. Call 1-800-PICK-ATT.
All right, listen up. We still got a lot of game. Keep the energy up. We need that effort on shift at a time and chip away. They're not that good.
Come on, concentrate. Play your own game. Block everything.
Win this thing. Pick it up. Get out of there. You got 3 minutes. We're going to run. We can shut them down.
Dad, just pick one already.
When you have this many channels with your favorite sports, the UVerse revolves around you.